I'm Indy Neidell.
And I'm Burns.
And this is the Baseball History Time Machine.
Cruising into 2026 with the grace of Joe DiMaggio.
That is true. This is the first episode of 2026.
And you said that we'll be doing a series on Sluggers of the 1970s, right?
That I did. And we will, starting today.
And I'm curious to see how and who you chose to cover, since some guys were top sluggers in more than one decade, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, for example, Mike Schmidt won 3 straight homer titles in the 70s, but I'm going to leave him for sluggers of the 80s because he won 5 more and 3 MVPs. Right?
Okay, but what about Hank Aaron? I mean, he retired in the mid-70s, but also set the home run record then, right?
That is true. And he also didn't break into the majors until 1954, but I think I'd actually choose to cover him in sluggers of the 1950s over 1960s.
How come?
Well, in the 6 seasons he played in the 1950s, he won 2 batting titles and an MVP. He finished 3rd in the MVP 3 other times, and he won 2 out of his 3 career Gold Gloves. But it is all arbitrary. Right?
So what are we going to cover today? Where are you going to begin?
Well, I was going to look at the guys who hit the most total homers from 1970 to 1979, including 1970, right?
Okay.
And then some of the big yearly leaders and some of the MVPs and maybe a few other weirdos.
And I'm guessing we'll be doing multiple episodes?
Yeah. Sluggers of the 1940s was 5 episodes, and there were way fewer sluggers then.
Okay, so who's first?
Well, okay. Who do you think hit the most home runs in MLB in the 10 years, 1970 to 1979?
I'm going to guess something just out of left field here. One of my favorite catchers of all time and legend of the Red Machine, Johnny Bench, maybe? Is up there?
You are close. You are very close.
Okay.
But the answer, the correct answer, with 296 homers over 10 seasons, 29.6 a year.
That's pretty good.
Is Pittsburgh career player Willie Stargell. And Willie being short for Wilver, not William.
Of course. Did he really play his whole career with the Pirates?
He did. He played from 1962 to 1982.
Oh, wow.
But the 70s was his prime.
Okay.
And from 71 to 73, he finished 2nd, 3rd, and 2nd in the MVP race. 7th in 1975. And then, at the age of 39, the by then Pops Stargell won the 1979 National League MVP, or co-won the 79 MVP, since he tied with Keith Hernandez, with Cardinals first baseman Keith Hernandez in the voting. Though Stargell did get 10 first place votes, and Hernandez only got 4.
Hang on. If he was that good at 39, what kind of numbers did he put up at that age?
He only played 126 games in 1979, and he only had 480 plate appearances. He hit .281 with 32 homers and 82 RBI.
And what about Hernandez?
He led the National League in batting, hitting .344. He led the league in runs scored with 116. He led the majors with 48 doubles. He also played 161 games and had 698 plate appearances, over 200 more than Stargell. And he also won the Gold Glove at first base.
It does sound like Hernandez kind of deserved it over him.
If you use modern metrics, sure. Stargell was 9th in WAR on just his own team. Though 5 of the guys ahead of him were, in fact, pitchers.
But why did he get the award then?
Today, with the reliance we have on things like WAR, and I doubt he would get it. But it was really for his inspirational leadership and the massive morale boost he gave his team, leading the "We Are Family Pirates" to the pennant, and then that was really, they were the "We Are Family Pirates."
That's crazy.
That's part of the reason that song was so big, and in the States.
I did not know that.
They swept Cincinnati in the playoffs.
Oh, wow!
And then they beat the Orioles 4-3 in a 7-game World Series. Now, Stargell was the MVP of the National League Champions Series and the World Series, right? Both of them. He hit .455 in the NLCS with an on-base percentage of .571 and a slugging percentage of over 1. Of over 1,000, right?
That's
considering,
crazy.
Babe Ruth has the career all-time record of .690. He had 1.182. That's how many bases per at-bat he averaged in the NLCS. And then he hit .400 and slugged .833 in the series.
That's insane.
He hit a 2-run homer in Game 7, which was the deciding factor as the Pirates came back from being down 3-1 to win the series.
Okay, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That is all-time great, like World Series run. But does the postseason doesn't factor into normal regular season MVP voting, does it? It doesn't, right?
It's not supposed to.
It's not, not supposed to.
And the MVP voting is supposed to happen before the postseason.
But that's my point.
I assume that it did in 1979. I do not know, but I assume that it did in 79.
Okay.
And I am aware that there are people who think Keith Hernandez was robbed. But I will tell you this. I was 12 that year. Yeah. And Willie Stargell was everywhere. He was hot when he had to be, stepped up when he needed to be. If you believe that intangibles count in the MVP race, then his case is pretty solid. And he also became the first guy ever to win the regular season MVP, the playoffs MVP, and the World Series MVP in the same season. But hey, speaking of this MVP voting, you want to hear something really interesting about the MVP voting that year?
I bet everybody listening does.
I guess that's why they're listening.
Yes.
Okay, if you look through the archives of baseballanalysts.com, Bill Dean writes that in his 1988 book, Award Voting, he criticizes the fairly common practice of splitting a vote, which happened in the 1979 National League MVP race when one writer split his fourth place vote between the two Niekro brothers, Joe Niekro and Phil Niekro. And a fourth place vote was worth 7 points. And after that, it's 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, down to 10 points.
Yeah. What was first place?
14 points. And then it's 9 for second and down to 1, right?
Okay.
I'm going to quote Dean. So, you get 5 more being first place.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I'm going to quote Dean to try and make my point here.
Okay.
Under the 14-987-654-3-2-1 system used for the MVP award, a fourth place vote is worth 7 points. And in this case, those 7 were split between the Niekro brothers, giving them just 3.5 points apiece. In other words, that writer's 5th, 6th, and 7th place nominees each received more points than the fourth place co-selections.
Yeah,
Assuming the acceptability of the split vote, the ballot in question should have been adjusted. So the Niekros were tied for 4th and 5th, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then instead of 7 and 6, they'd get 6.5 each, right?
Wrong.
With the remaining selections moved down, losing 1 point each. One thing that did not occur to me, to Dean, I'm still quoting, until recently, was that this mess-up conceivably could have created the tie for first place between Stargell and Hernandez if either player was listed lower than 4th on that writer's ballot. He should have received 1 point less, swinging the election to the other player.
Okay, that's very interesting. Were either of them lower than 4th place on the ballot?
I will quote Dean again.
Oh, okay.
No, hang on. I told you, this is really interesting.
Yeah, it is. But I'm kind of vexed about the whole thing. I'm kind of annoyed that imagine you get a 4th place vote, but you get less points than somebody who's 5th. That is
place,
but that's egregious.
Yeah,
it's absolutely egregious.
Okay, well, here's a quote from Dean again. Stargell received 10 first place votes, 3 seconds, 4 thirds, a fourth, and 2 sixths, being left off the other 4 ballots. So there is a 2 in 23 possibility that he was listed on the Niekro ballot lower than 4th place. Hernandez got 4 first-place nominations, 8 seconds, 7 thirds, 2 fourths, and 3 fifths. So there is a 3 in 22 possibility that he was listed on the Niekro ballot lower than 4th place. You're making me laugh, too. The way I figure it, Dean, not me, the probability is 20% that either Stargell or Hernandez, but not both, was listed lower than 4th on that writer's ballot. If so, and the votes were counted correctly, that would have broken the tie between the two.
Okay, this has got me really worked up. Well, can't they just dig up the old ballots and have a look? Can somebody do that?
Apparently, they're shredded a few years after voting. So no, this is actually a mystery we will never solve.
And possibly one of the two was deprived of solo MVP glory in 1979. That's what we're saying.
Yes, that's what we're saying.
We've ruined the 1979 voting.
We have.
Because not only have we allowed someone to give a 4th place person less points than 5th, 6th, 7th, and so forth. Not only did we do that.
It's a tie.
But it's also a tie, and we don't know what happened because the ballots have been ripped up.
And a lot of people think Dave Winfield should have won anyway, but that's a different story.
Oh, God. Okay. Okay. This thing has a lot of layers. Okay.
Yeah, it's got layers.
Okay. Tell me more about Willie Stargell in general. Like, I know he hit a lot of home runs, but that's about it.
He could have hit a lot more homers. He hit 475 as it is, right?
That's a lot.
But he could have easily topped 500, possibly 550. See, until mid-1968, the Pirates played in Forbes Field, which was, for most of its existence, designed to thwart cheap home runs. Stargell was a lefty, and while the right field foul line was easy enough to reach at the wall, at 300 feet in center, 300 feet in 1968. The wall was 28 feet high there. The power alley in right center was 408 feet deep. Only the Twins Stadium was deeper there, but no one else in the National League was. In dead center, it was 435 feet to the wall.
Oh, wow.
Only Yankee Stadium and Connie Mack Stadium, where the Phillies played, was deeper there. And going around to left field, it was 365 at the wall there, which was the deepest of all Major League stadia.
Nice use of the Latin plural there, by the way.
It's podium, stadium, stadia.
Stadia. I've never actually thought of that way. I've never had to refer to stadia.
It's a group 2 neutered noun. My junior high school in Houston was the last school that required in Texas that required students to take Latin. So in 78 and 79, I had to take 2. I remember all the endings. So things like stadium, I'm like, that is a group 2 neutered noun. So it'd be I, a, or is would be the endings.
So I had Latin for ages 13 to 15.
All right.
But English isn't even my first language, so you can understand how that did not really come into much use.
What disturbs me is that the word scrotum is a neutered noun. You think if something is going to be a masculine noun, you think let's pick 5 things that are going to be masculine nouns. Just 5 things that are going to be masculine nouns. You'd think that would be up there. You'd be wrong. So the plural of scrotum is scrota. So if you go to a doctor and you have a problem with your testicles, and you say, "Well, doc, is this common?" He should say, in all the scrota I've examined.
If he said that to me, I would burst.
He'd be the best doctor ever, right?
Yeah, he would. He'd be the most correct.
He'd be
doctor.
the most. And all the scrota I've examined imagined.
Imagine is crazy.
I hope he doesn't say imagine.
of all the scrota I've imagined.
You know what? I don't care if he imagines scrota. It's a big world.
He's a medical professional. Okay?
He
might have to
That's
imagine
what you have to
scrota.
do. Lying in bed thinking, God, that guy's got a problem. Let me imagine what it would be like to fix that problem.
You can't see this, but I'm covering my face.
Yeah, he is actually covering his face.
Away.
Well,
all right,
things you learn here
on
the Baseball History Time Machine
so.
And the Latin history. I'm glad that you guys had to learn Latin too, because it was by 1980, no one in Texas was required. No school in Texas had it.
So I think, and my dad studied BCom LLB at one point, right? And I think he had, and I'm obviously I'm speaking under correction here, but I think he had Asterix and Obelix comics.
Oh, in Latin.
In Latin.
My favorite Asterix and Obelix joke was they're hanging out and a goth walks by and Asterix goes, "Look, Visigoths," and Obelix goes, "Why the past tense?" Because visit is I saw.
That's very clever.
Why the past tense?
Why the past tense?
I love that. Okay, anyway.
All right, moving on.
Okay. The Pirates, we're talking about stadia,
yes.
Right? The Pirates moved to Three Rivers Stadium in 1970. And while the right field line was 340 feet, which is 40 feet longer, all the outfield walls were only 10 feet high. And it was but 385 feet in right center, 410 in dead center. So Stargell was really in a position to beef up his homer totals.
But did he?
His first full season there, he led the majors with 48 homers. Okay. And 2 years later, he hit 44. They were the only times he topped 40 in his career.
So it was a real difference by the sounds of it.
It was a real difference. And I'm going to give you some background, right? Wilver, I love that name, Wilver Stargell was from Oklahoma, and his name is a combination of his dad's first name, William, and his mother's maiden name, Vernell. William Vernell, Wilver.
If there's Afrikaans people listening to this, don't you dare. Don't you dare.
Well, maybe they'll be inspired by this. His dad left town before he was born, right? So I assume the name was his mother's idea. He wouldn't meet his dad until he was nearly 20 years old, but his father's father, Will Stargell, who was the son of a former slave and a Native American, interestingly enough, took care of the boy until his mom remarried and moved out to California. Okay. Now, a bit later, young Wilver was sent to Florida to live with an aunt when his mom married for a third time. Wilver Stargell was not a fan of his aunt, a domineering woman who treated him like crap. And according to his Sabre bio, quote, "Spanking became a permanent part of my late afternoon routine."
That sounds quite horrific, actually.
And it was horrific for 6 years. And then Stargell went back to California and grew into a big, strong teenager who played a lot of baseball. In August 1958, still just 17 years old, he was signed by the Pirates for $1,500. He was sent to Class D ball in Texas and New Mexico, and I will now read another quote from that Sabre bio about what Willie Stargell went through, which is probably par for the course about what black players went through in minor leagues in places like New Mexico and Texas back then, right? Quote, "Many restaurants in the area were white only. On the road, while the white players dined in relative comfort, Stargell waited outside on the team bus, choking down homemade Spam and salami sandwiches. He and his minority teammates were not welcome at hotels or motels either, so they boarded at the homes of whichever people of color would take them in. The conditions typically were far from luxurious. I lived on back porches in fold-up beds," he said, right? On one trip, Stargell stayed with a woman who raised bait in her home. The darkness, humidity, and stench were so overwhelming it was like sleeping inside a tackle box. Stargell said the turning point of his life and career came during a trip to Plainview, Texas that season. As he strolled to the ballpark, a man approached him and put a gun to his head and said, "If you play in that game tonight, I'll blow your brains out."
Yo,
Even
what?
though he was terrified, he summoned the courage to take the field that evening. He later claimed that was the moment he became a man, more determined than ever to make it, and quote him saying, "I couldn't go back home to the projects where we had prostitutes, pimps, some muggers. There was no telling what would happen. Baseball was an avenue out of the ghetto."
Well, he made it out, and I think like a lot of guys back then,
Yeah.
that was a lifeline. you
Yeah.
know? Like, and it's like that if you think about football or soccer as American listeners know it by. For a lot of like Brazilians and like people from like Southern America, that like much like baseball for Central and other places, it's a lifeline out of that life. So, yeah.
I had an ex-girlfriend here in Sweden, and maybe about 10 years or so ago, she was going out with a guy who was a rising soccer football star here in Sweden. And he had been busted by the team for smoking pot, because you're not supposed to do that, right? And then got busted again. And I'm not certain if he was actually banned from. He was up and coming and stuff.
For pot, that's crazy though.
But it's a fine line.
It's tough though.
Well, Willie Stargell moved through the minors pretty quickly, and he got called up, like I said, in 1962. In 1964, he made his first All-Star team, and by the 70s, he was larger than life.
Oh, how so?
Well, okay, he was a pretty big guy, but he was not a giant. But his presence was gigantic.
Okay.
And his homers were gigantic. Even before the 70s. Okay, check this out.
Yeah.
Forbes Field was used by the Pirates for 61 seasons. And only 18 balls by anyone on either team, home or away, were hit over the right field roof. 7 of them by Willie Stargell in the 1960s.
Oh, wow. That's power.
Yes, power.
That's power.
And when they moved to Three Rivers Stadium, 6 homers, as of 2016, when that bio was written, landed in the upper deck. 4 of them by Willie Stargell. Playing against Montreal in 1978 at the age of 38, he hit a ball 535 feet, and the Expos painted the seat where it landed gold as a tribute to the power of Willie Stargell.
Okay, that's cool. I hope Expo Stadium is still there. I don't know if they've demolished it or whatever.
You would think that would be something I would know off the top of my head, and I don't know.
I hope it's still there, or at least if they demolished it, they kept that chair. It's somewhere. It has to be in the Hall of Fame or something.
Yeah, somebody.
Like surely. Okay, but I had no idea that this dude had this much power.
His bombs were bombs. Here's something though that illustrates the intangibles that got him the MVP in 1979.
All right.
In 1980, next year, the Pirates were in first place in August, but when Stargell was injured and went out for the rest of the season, they went 16-28 and missed the postseason. That's what he meant.
That's horrific. That's horrific.
He was pretty much just a pinch hitter in 81 and 82. And when the team retired his number in 1982, President Ronald Reagan called to say congratulations.
Okay, that's some pretty serious respect. If you got the president calling you,
say congratulations.
that's crazy to me. So How was his retirement? Like,
It did not
what happened?
begin. It had hiccups. It didn't begin well.
Okay.
First, he had a divorce in 1984, and the next year he was accused at baseball drug trials of giving teammates speed.
Say what?
According to Dale Berra, Yogi Berra's son. But the charges were dismissed, not just dismissed, but were dismissed as ludicrous.
That sounds crazy to me. Like, why would he do that?
Still, he was a coach for the Pirates under Pirate manager Chuck Tanner,
Okay.
and the whole staff was fired. And then
Oh,
he went to
wow.
Atlanta, to the Braves, with
Yeah.
Tanner. Now, Willie Stargell was elected to the Hall of Fame in 1988 on the first ballot,
Of course.
but his issues with Pittsburgh's ownership were pretty deep. I'm not going to get into it here, and you guys can look it up. But considering the last words he had heard from them were, "You're fired," he thought it pretty rich that they suddenly wanted to have a special night for him when he made the Hall of Fame. So he declined.
Naturally, I would do the same.
He coached with the Braves for 10 years or so, but by the time he was my age, late 50s, he was physically on his way out. He died April 9th, 2001, coincidentally, the date of the first game at Pittsburgh's PNC Park. James Four is the guy who wrote Stargell's Saber bio, and he says that people laid flowers at the base of a statue of Willie Stargell that had been unveiled just a few days earlier.
Oh, wow. That story turned out way sadder than I expected. That just kind of took the wind out of me.
Yeah, sorry, man.
That's, wow.
Willie Stargell was part of my childhood.
I can imagine.
Those Pirates won the National League East 6 times in 10 years in the 70s. The same number as the Big Red Machine did in the NL West, and Pops was a big part of that.
Well, cheers to Willie Stargell.
Cheers to Willie Stargell.
Cheers.
Okay.
All right, so who's next down the homers of the 70s list?
Well, Stargell had 296 homers from 1970 to 1979, as I said. Coming in second with 4 fewer at 292 is Reggie Jackson.
Who else, of course?
Now, Jackson got MVP votes every single season that decade except 1970,
Wow.
and was an all-star every season except 1970 and 1976, which is interesting because he led the AL in slugging and OPS plus in 1976. He won the AL MVP in 1973, leading the league in homers and RBI that year, which we did talk a bit about in the 1973 Cy Young
Yeah, I
Award.
remember that. Yeah.
Right. I remember Reggie Jackson very well. He, too, was larger than life. It's hard, especially as a podcast thing, it's hard to explain to people who weren't around then how big things like Fernando Mania or Mark Fidrich Bird Mania really were. But those were one-season things. Reggie Mania lasted the entire decade.
That's crazy.
He was Shohei Ohtani level famous.
Wow.
He was, and you just have to understand he was that big.
But
right?
anybody who's ever like had anything to do with baseball knows who Reggie Jackson is.
There you go.
But
he lived up to it for the most part. And I'll tell you what, his most iconic moment, which I remember going to school and talking about this with awe, because it was so unbelievable, was Game 6 of the 1977 World Series. Anybody out there, if you don't know what I'm about to tell you, turn this up, because this is baseball. Right?
Buckle in.
The Yankees won that game and the series that day. They won the series in those 6 games. No, actually, Reggie Jackson won that game and the series. Now, bottom of the second, Yankees down 2-0. Bert Hooton on the mound for LA. He walks Reggie on 4 pitches, right?
Okay.
Chris Chambliss drives him in with a homer to tie the game. Bottom of the 4th, Reggie comes up and homers off Hooton on the first pitch. Bottom of the 5th, Reggie comes up and homers off Elias Souza on the first pitch. Bottom of the 8th, Reggie comes up and homers off Charlie Hoff on the first pitch. Yankees win 8-4, winning the series. Reggie drives in 5 of those runs, but he homered on 3 straight pitchers, off of 3 different pitchers in the World Series finale. Let me point this out and make it bigger. He saw 7 total pitches that game and got a walk and 3 homers.
That's insane.
He was obviously the World Series MVP.
Can you imagine, like, every time you come up, there's a new guy on the mound because you just smashed the previous guy out the
It's
park.
the first pitch.
But the first pitch is, like the amount of, like soul-breaking, like, just crushing feeling of, like, I have to pitch to this guy, and look what he did to the guy before me. Now I have to try and do something. I mean, that's what stuff of legends are made of. Like,
and it's true. And
that's
also,
insane.
it's the stuff that candy bars are made of, too, because they launched the Reggie bar, his own
here we
candy
go.
bar, soon after that.
Okay, was it any good? It had to be good,
Yeah,
right?
it was okay. It wasn't bad. I don't remember it as being great, but it's been a long time. But hey, I looked it up, and Reggie bars are for sale again at Amazon.com.
No way.
Unfortunately, they don't ship them to Sweden, and neither Swedish, British, nor German Amazon sell them. We're in Sweden here.
But maybe someone can send us some. If anybody wants to send us,
but that's an idea.
some
Here, I'll
Reggie
tell you what. If someone can send us a 6-pack or 12-pack of them, they come in 6, 12, and 24 apparently. We will send you something back.
Yes.
I'll tell you what. We can take one of my baseball books and we can write a dedication to you who send us Reggie bars, and we'll both sign it, and we'll send that in exchange, right?
Sure.
I have a large library of baseball books.
Actually, that's a really great idea. I really want to taste the Reggie bars.
There you go.
I'm pumped for that. But how should they get hold of us?
Well, we check Instagram the most, so they should probably send us a direct message on Insta. Mm-hmm. Facebook would probably work. At Facebook, we're Indy Neidell's Baseball History Time Machine. At Insta, it's Indy Neidell's Baseball Podcast, all one word.
Yeah, the name was too long for Insta with Baseball History Time Machine.
Which was really annoying.
Yeah. What happens if hundreds of people send us Reggie bars?
Then we can enjoy eating them while I restock my depleted baseball library.
Okay, that's fair enough.
And now, back to Mr. October.
He sure earned it.
Reggie earned it already in 1973 when he first won the World Series MVP in his first World Series.
Wait, he played for the A's and then won 3 straight series from 72 to 74. Did Reggie not play in the 72 series?
He did not. In the final game of the American League playoffs against the Tigers, Game 5.
Yeah.
Jackson was on third place, and the A's pulled off a double steal. And he scored the tying run, but he tore his hamstring.
Oh.
He had to be carried from the field, and he got to watch the A's beat the Reds in the series from the dugout. But he still played in 5 other World Series, 73, 74 with the A's. Yeah. 77, 78, and 81 with the Yankees. Yeah. Overall, in series play, Reggie hit .357 and slugged .755.
Okay, that's insane.
You know, Reggie was a star pretty quickly when he hit the majors.
When did he come up?
He played in 35 games with the A's in 1967 as a 21-year-old when they were still in Kansas City. Their first year in Oakland was 1968. Mm-hmm. He was drafted in 1966 and signed by Charlie Finley for $85,000.
Wow.
In his fairly brief time in the minors, he played with Raleigh Fingers, Joe Rudy, Dave Duncan, all of whom would be part of the A's dynasty a few years later.
Yeah.
He had a good 68 as his first full season, then broke out in 1969, hitting a career-high 47 homers.
Wow.
He led the majors with 123 runs scored that year, led the AL in slugging, OPS plus at 189, which is amazing, but there were real issues with all that.
Such as?
He was 22 at the start of the season, but he had hit 34 homers by July 5th, on pace to top Roger Maris's 61, the record.
Yeah, but he only finished on 47.
Yeah, only. But it's still an awful lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
In his autobiography called Reggie, the Autobiography, he says he was completely overwhelmed by the pressure of suddenly being thrust onto the national stage.
Yeah.
People grabbed him and screamed for autographs, and microphones were shoved into his face daily, and it's an awful lot for a young man to deal with.
Yeah.
If you look up his splits for the season, before the All-Star break, he hit .287 with 37 homers and 79 RBIs and slugged .716. After the break, he hit .258 with 10 homers and 39 RBI and slugged .453.
I mean, that's a bit of a downturn, but I can understand just being overwhelmed constantly.
I'm not going to go into it and his background much today and how he was in general. Okay, Reggie was cocky and brash, yes. But he had to deal with a lot of shit, especially the first half of his career, and not just racism. Loads of expectations, loads of haters for things like leading the league in strikeouts 4 straight years. But that is all covered in the documentary about Reggie. Came out, I think, in 2023. And it's pretty good. And Reggie can talk about himself and what he went through way better than I can.
What's it called?
Reggie.
Of course.
I think it's on Apple TV. It's pretty good. You guys should check it out.
Right, I need to check that out as well. So after hitting 47 homers in 69, he was a big hero the rest of the way. Did he deal with how did he deal with that pressure?
It took him some time. 1970 was the worst season he'd have until the strike season of 1981. Though he was still better than most players.
Yeah, I mean, that goes without saying, but then the A's dynasty really took off.
Yeah, they won the division 71 to 75, 5 straight years. And they won those 3 straight World Series, 72, 73, 74. Which is ironic, since one of the points of introducing divisions in 1969 was to prevent the same team from winning year after year. That was like one of the
They're
things.
like, look, we have a plan.
Yeah.
And you guys are ruining
They ruined-
my perfectly laid
2 years
plan.
later, they ruined the plan.
Okay. Was Reggie always the top homer guy on the A's dynasty for those teams?
He was in 71, 73, 74, and 75, but he was not in 1972.
Okay, who tops that year then?
Mike Epstein.
Whom?
I understand that. But in 1972, first baseman Mike Epstein led the World Series champion A's in homers, on base percentage, slugging, and OPS plus. He hit 26 homers to Reggie's 25.
Okay, fair enough.
And had a 163 OPS plus. Now remember, those 26 homers back then was good enough for third in the American League that year behind Dick Allen and Bobby Mercer.
See, those guys I've heard of, but I've never heard of Mike Epstein.
Sidetrack accepted.
All right.
Anyhow,
let's go.
I did want to move on from Reggie because everybody can just check out the documentary. Okay, Mike Epstein came from the Bronx, but moved to L.A. as a teenager. He was a pitcher, but he blew his arm out already sophomore year in high school. So he went to college on a football scholarship at UC Berkeley.
What position was he?
Epstein was a big, strong guy, and he was a running back. Fun fact, Craig Morton was their quarterback. Now, I remember watching Craig Morton blow the Super Bowl against the Cowboys when I was a kid. And that had to be like January 78, 77, 78. I think 78. That was the Broncos' Orange Crush defense against the Cowboys' Doomsday defense. But those Cowboys, though, Harvey Martin, Too Tall Jones, Randy White, all on defense. Tony Dorsett in the backfield, Drew Pearson catching passes from Staubach. They were a great team. Morton was intercepted 4 times that game, and he passed for something like 40 total yards and no TDs.
Nightmare. Absolute nightmare. That is a heck of a sidetrack from your sidetrack about Mike Epstein.
Well, sidetracks should generate sidetracks, but sure, back to Mike Epstein. My first sidetrack. I could talk about Craig Morton for a while too. I liked Morton.
Yeah,
because he'd been with the Cowboys before he ended up with the Broncos and stuff. Yeah. I remember watching, and actually, I had like this sort of sour feeling in my stomach that day, and my dad gave me an antacid. That was the day I learned what heartburn was.
Oh wow!
I remember that. During that, and it wasn't like I particularly cared for one team or the other. I was from Houston. I didn't give a shit about the Cowboys.
But it was enthralling.
But my dad, he's like, "Oh, you have heartburn." That is the day, whatever day the Super Bowl. Craig Morton blew it against Roger Staubach and the Cowboys. That's the day I learned what I'd seen it on TV commercials.
Yeah, of course.
That's the first time I ever actually had heartburn.
Seeing heartburn, experiencing heartburn, not the same.
No,
it's way worse than it looks on the commercials.
I knew what it was. I knew what it actually was.
It's way worse than it looks on the commercials. I'll tell you that.
Okay, well, Mike Epstein, I don't know how much heartburn he had, although I'd love to see a Mike Epstein heartburn commercial. But he was committed to football.
Okay.
Until. And this is interesting. To one of these random moments in life happened.
Okay.
Now here's a quote from his Sabre bio. Walking back from spring football practice, he and other football players made their way past the baseball field where the freshman team was warming up. Their coach, Al Matthews, needled them about the average football player's lack of real athletic talent. Not one of them has the athleticism to hit a baseball, he said loudly. Epstein yelled back he could hit anything the coach could throw. Matthews took him up on the notion, and though Epstein struggled to make contact initially, he finally started to drive one ball after another over the fence.
Jeez.
Varsity coach George Wolfman was handed his star player for that season and the next. The next fall, Epstein quit football and focused on baseball, fearing the gridiron was only a chance for injury.
Well, he's not wrong.
During his junior season, Epstein became a college all-star, hitting .384.
That's a very cool way to begin a Major League Baseball career.
And Epstein also had an Olympic career, too. He played for the U.S. baseball team at the Tokyo Olympics in 1964, leading the team in hitting.
Did they win a medal?
Baseball was still an exhibition sport in those Olympics, right?
Okay.
Hoping to become an official.
Yeah, of course.
So there were no medals. Baseball didn't become a medal sport until 1992 in the Olympics, actually. But after those Olympics, Epstein played with Stockton in Class A ball in California and was the league's MVP.
Okay, I take it back what I said earlier about who, but more people should have heard of this guy.
And he picked up the nickname Super Jew there.
Okay. Was it a nickname that he liked?
Oh yeah, he owned it. He totally owned it. And if someone asked if it was spelled with, like a reporter, one word or two, he'd say, "Well, you spell Superman all as one word, right?"
Wow.
I know. You gotta like this guy, right?
All right. I like him.
He continued burning up the minors, but he was owned by the Orioles, and they had Boog Powell at first base, so they didn't bring him up.
Yeah, fair enough.
And he really believed he had earned a shot at the majors. So in 1967, he refused to report to Rochester. So in May, the Orioles traded him to Washington. There, he was the everyday first baseman. But though we, here in 2026, can see stats like a 110 OPS plus being better than average, back then they just saw the 226 average with 9 homers in 105 games.
That's not fair.
But in 1968, he upped his production a bit, but he was hitting nothing like he had in the minors, and he was a real disappointment.
But he still managed to stick around somehow, I guess.
He did, and then he broke out in 1969. You see Burns. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you something, you're going to like this.
All right.
That season, Ted Williams became the Senators' new manager.
Here we go.
And he made Mike Epstein's hitting his special personal project. And if Ted Williams is your private personal batting instructor...
I swear to God, if I could turn into a hitter, if I had Ted Williams, I would run through a wall for Ted Williams.
Yeah, to be your personal private instructor.
I would give my small finger for Ted Williams to teach.
Well, he responded well. He hit 278 with 30 homers and 78 RBIs, and that was a 176 OPS plus. Because remember, this is really low offense AL in the 1960s.
I like that he made it good. I'm
did.
Happy for him. Yeah.
And after 1970, he was traded to the A's, and he was pretty good in 1971, but was great in 72, like I said, topping Jackson's homer output. Right.
But what happened to him?
Well, late in the season in 1972, he actually got into a fight with Reggie Jackson in the locker room.
Like actual fisticuffs, like
an actual fist fight.
Jeez.
And there was some lingering ill will after that. So Chuck Finley traded him kind of back to Washington, since by then Washington had moved to Texas and become the Texas Rangers. Epstein was really pissed off about that, even though he was the Rangers' highest paid player. But he complained that he'd been traded from the best team in the world to the worst team in the world. He did not perform well in 1973. After a month of hitting 200 ball with 1 homer, Texas traded him to the Angels, but for the whole season, he hit 209 with just 9 homers for the whole season.
Okay.
After 18 games with the Angels in 1974, hitting 161, his major league career was over.
Oy vey, as they say. But did he have any serious injuries or something that was kind of causing him to play like this?
He himself said he was just burned out, and he walked away from baseball. He actually ended up going into business and making a lot of money starting a commodities trading company.
Oh, wow.
He eventually came back to baseball, though. First coaching youth teams, then managing in the minors for the Brewers organization, and then setting up the Epstein School of Hitting.
A batting school?
Which still exists, actually.
Oh, what?
EpsteinHitting.com, you can look it up, is the Epstein Online Hitting Academy, and it's run by his son, Jake Epstein, who is also a talented hitter.
Well, I mean, he was instructed by
Ted Williams.
Goddamn Williams.
I know.
That's so cool, actually.
So I was looking at the website this morning, and I'm tempted to sign up for lessons. I mean, it can't hurt.
No.
I do still play baseball, and why not get techniques that were literally handed down?
I might actually join you.
Yeah.
I might actually join you on that. I'm keen. I should sign up and maybe learn to hit a baseball properly.
Now, this is Jake who runs it, son Jake. But Papa Mike Epstein is still alive, and he was elected to the National Jewish Sports Hall of Fame.
I mean, and topping Reggie Jackson in homers on the same team for a season, you can't take that away from him. That's pretty knockout stuff.
You cannot. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up for today.
But we've covered three sluggers of the 1970s.
Yeah.
At this rate, it's going to be sluggers of the 1970s for 50 episodes long.
Well, we shall see. All right. Okay, everyone. That was fun. Please, as I say, join us at patreon.com. Every dollar that we get there does go to this. And I'm thinking we need merch as well.
Such as?
You have coffee mugs, t-shirts. Oh, no. Autographed baseballs.
By us?
Yeah. Autographed baseballs by us. Why not? Why not?
I've never played baseball in my life, and I'm going to sign a baseball. Yeah. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
Okay, well, sure.
And anybody, if anybody knows Mike or Jake Epstein, tell them that we're giving them a shout out this episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Not that I expect a discount. Happy to pay full price for the online coaching. It sounds like a good deal.
Yeah, it sounds cool.
It's not that expensive actually. Anyway. Yeah. Oh, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook and all that sort of thing. And tell any baseball journalists you know about us so they write about us and we get loads more followers because this is awesome, right?
Yes.
I shall now take us home. That's it for today from me, Indy Neidell,
And me, Burns.
and the Baseball History Time Machine.
Nice.